It's freedom or death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power. 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 We got to fight the designed to bounce with calcium that thrive. Designed to fill your mind now that you realize the prize arrives. We got to pump the stuff to make it tough. From the hardest to start a work of art to revolutionize, make a change, nothing strange. People, we all the same. No, we're not the same, cause we don't know the game. What we need is awareness. We can't get careless. You say, what is this? All beloved, let's get down to business. Mental self-defense of fitness. Don't rush the show. You got to go for what you know. To make everybody see. In order to fight the powers that be. Fight the power. 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 We got to fight the powers that be.
Hey guys, we are going to just wait to get started for 5 minutes, just to let some latecomers come in, and then we will get the ball rolling.
Get up, stand up for your right. Get up, stand up for your right. Get up, stand up for your right. Get up, stand up, don't give up the fight. Preacher man, don't tell me heaven is under the earth.
first paycheck.
Don't you know, talking about a revolution sounds whisper. Don't you know, talking about a revolution sounds like a whisper. While they're standing in the welfare lines, crying at the doorsteps of those armies of salvation, wasting time in the unemployment lines, sitting around waiting for a promotion. Don't you know, talking about a revolution sounds whisper. Who are people gonna rise up, get their share? Who are people gonna rise up and take what's theirs? Don't you know you better run, 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 run. Oh, I said you better run, 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 run. 'Cause finally the tables are starting to turn. Talking about a revolution. 'Cause finally the tables are starting to turn. Talking about a revolution. No. Talking about a revolution. Standing in the welfare line, crying at the doorsteps of those armies of salvation, wasting time in the unemployment lines, sitting around waiting for a promotion. Don't you know, talking about a revolution sounds whisper. And finally the tables are starting to turn. Talking about a revolution. Yes, finally the tables are starting to turn. Talking about a revolution. No. Talking about a revolution. No. Talking about a revolution. No.
I learned a lot, this last year.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to tonight's town hall. I don't know, but I've been told Trump's bullshit is getting old. Title I is on the skids. Head Start's canceled for the kids. Sound off. Sound off. But we will fight for students' rights. To learn, to grow, to read, to write. We'll fight, we'll bite, we'll kick, we'll scream. To save our schools and fund the dream. All right, excellent, thank you. Welcome everybody, good evening. Thank you for making it out to the Education Town Hall. I appreciate you being here. My name is Paul Michael, and I am your host for the evening. I'm also the director of Take Action Salt Lake. I love the energy in this room. We are a small group, but we are a mighty group. And so, I want you for just a second to forget that you are in a library. Tonight isn't about being quiet. Tonight is about making noise. Yeah. If a speaker says something you agree with, I want you to let him know. Hit him with a, I agree, or that's right, or Now let me hear it. Can I get an amen? Amen! All right, excellent. So Take Action Salt Lake is a community group committed to defending democracy and civil rights in the face of rising authoritarianism. And we're doing this in partnership with the Utah Alliance Coalition, an organization that holds elected officials accountable at all levels of the government. And, well, I'm going to ask you a favor. We need your help. If you believe what we're doing here tonight is worth amplifying, then don't keep it to yourself. Take out your phone, snap a photo, post a video, and yes, tag Senator John Curtis. Let's make sure our conversation tonight reaches far beyond these four walls. Whether you're a parent, a teacher, or a student, or someone who believes that a well-funded public school is the bedrock of a strong democracy, you belong here. You belong in the fight to protect our nation's schools and universities. Democracy is not a spectator sport, and everybody here knows that. We can't just sit around and wait for someone else to solve the problem. That's why we organized tonight's town hall. That's why you came to tonight's town hall. And that's why we will keep organizing town halls just like this one. We're tired of being ignored, so we're going to become unignorable. Senator John Curtis, it's been 348 days since your last town hall. Where are your town halls? And I'm not talking about those highly curated teletown halls. I'm not talking about those meet and greets that he organizes on the BYU campus for friendly audiences, small groups. No, I'm talking about a real town hall in Salt Lake City in a large auditorium during a time when working families can actually attend. Real town halls, that's where democracy comes to life. Where everyday people bring their hopes, their worries, and their truth into the room. And elected officials stop talking and start listening. Town halls are not partisan. They are fundamental. Whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, I know we can all agree that elected officials have a responsibility to listen to the people they represent. Senator Curtis, you don't get to cherry pick who you listen to or when it's convenient to talk with them. You don't get to govern behind closed doors. You want to build trust? Show up. You want to understand your community? Listen. That's how democracy grows stronger. Not from behind a desk, but from face-to-face conversations. Heart to heart, one conversation at a time.
Defend the Constitution!
That's right. Senator Curtis's absence is conspicuous, and it tells a story of a public servant who won't face the public, a leader who hides when things get tough. Leadership isn't about comfort, it's about courage, and courage means showing up.
Yeah!
Senator Curtis, when are you going to start showing up? Teachers are showing up. Parents are showing up. Students are showing up. Through budget cuts and burnout, through book bans and political games, we show up. What's he doing? Another good question. Well, Senator Curtis, your constituents aren't just scared. They're terrified. They're not just frustrated, they're exhausted and heartbroken. Find the courage to stand in the room with the people you serve. Listen to the folks who put you in office. Start holding town halls. Do your job.
Do your job.
And if you don't, more town halls are coming. And I promise you, our audience will continue to increase in size and intensity.
Yeah.
Folks, Utahns have been showing up, speaking out and fighting back for our kids, our classrooms, and our democracy. 10,000 people at the Hands Off rally. 20,000 people at the Bernie Sanders rally. And I think most incredibly, 600 people at the protest in Provo.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Sarah McConkie, can you stand up for just a second? Okay. All right. This is Sarah. She is the leader of the Utah County Indivisible team. And I have to say, it's amazing what you did. Thank you for doing it. Keep doing it. 600 people in Provo. Holy cow. Unbelievable. Well, if you have been waiting for the right time to act, this is it. The time is now. Stand up, fight back, and let's protect the democracy together.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I've been told. If we fight, our schools will hold. We are many, they are few. We know just what we've got to do. Excellent, excellent, thank you. All right, I know many of you are eager to hear from Senator Curtis. So if you don't mind, put your hands together and please give Senator Curtis a warm welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Curtis! Okay, is there anybody in the audience that would like to ask the senator a question? Spencer, will you come down here and pass the mic? Who would? Let's ask Senator Curtis a real question. Who has a real question to ask?
Curtis, will you stand up for education?
Will you stand up for education? Okay, there you go.
Senator Curtis, will you protect our Constitution?
Yeah.
He says no.
Senator Curtis, we stand with our allies against or for Ukraine.
Yeah.
Okay, Senator Curtis says yes, he will stand with the allies. And I'm sorry, he says no, he will not stand with the allies in Ukraine. Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Curtis. We have three amazing speakers lined up for you. Senator Catherine Reeby, Senator Nate Bluen, and Teacher of the Year, John Arthur. So they're going to talk for a little bit, and then they're going to take some questions from the audience, from you guys. Without further ado, Senator Kathleen Reeby, come on up.
I feel overdressed after the last. So, hi, my name is Kathleen Reeby, and I'm a senator from Cottonwood Heights, New Sandy area. Thank you. When I'm not in the Senate, I'm a school teacher in a classroom, in a school every day, and thank you. And I see the policies that are impacting our students, and I see the policies we're trying to create in our districts, and it's very alarming. So I've been a teacher for 23 years, and I've been a senator for 7 years. Prior to being a senator, I was in the state school board for 2 years, and prior to that, I was the vice president of GEA, the Granite Education Association. When I met people up at the Capitol this year, people were like, hey, why did you run? And I'm like, I ran for kids. I ran for education.
Yeah!
I ran for families. And as I saw what was happening in my community, I'm like, this is ridiculous. We have the largest class sizes in the nation. In the nation, we have the largest class sizes. Our kids are struggling, our families are struggling, and where you're going to make the biggest impact on these kids' lives is in school. The school can fix everything. When COVID happened 5 years ago, unbelievably it's 5 years ago, you know who was the first group of people to step up to the plate? The teachers.
Yeah!
They closed on Friday. They had things going on Monday to help those kids learn. They had computers in their houses. They had buses with lunches. They had hot spots for kids who couldn't learn. They were working every angle they could because they knew when they didn't help those kids were suffering. And so education is our biggest friend. Education creeps into every part of our community, every part of our state, everywhere. And so why are we being treated like we're not doing the very best we can every day, all day long?
Yeah.
That's hard for me to understand, that we are under attack as educators. So when I decided to run, I had a friend who worked in the education community, and he's like, you're gonna run for office? I'm from New York originally. I came here to ski 33 years ago, and I fell in love with the state of Utah. I don't have to say I was born and raised here. I fought to stay here. My family is like, when are you gonna come home? I'm like, I love it here in Utah. I love the mountains, I love the skiing, I love the hiking, I love the biking, I love the people. I love the state of Utah. But I'm also not part of the prevailing culture, so that even made people like, how are you gonna win? Well, I'm a person who's real. You ask me a question, I'm gonna tell you the answer. I'm not gonna say one thing in one room and another thing in another room. I say the same thing in every room all the time. And that's not what I'm seeing from some of my elected leaders, which is frustrating. This year up at the Capitol, we had a really hard year. And when people came up to me and talked to me, they're like, you know what, Kathleen, it's really interesting to see how you are always the same person. I said, what do you mean? They said, well, people will say other things other times. I'm like, well, what do you mean? Like, if you're a no, you're a no. That's what it is. That's what you should be for. So I think that's something that we all need to start exploring, and that's how we can start to get involved more. I ran for Congress 2 years ago against Celeste Malloy, and it was a really great race. But the reason why I'm not there and I'm here instead is because people didn't show up to vote. 30% of the people showed up to vote. If 60% of the people showed up in Salt Lake City to vote, where would I be right now?
In the Senate!
In the Congress, right? And that's what the difference is. We can't just be walking around saying, oh, we're the minority, oh, we can't make a difference. We didn't even show up to vote. So why are we saying that we can't make a difference if we're not even voting? We have to get out to vote. We have to get our friends out to vote. We have to get everyone out to vote. After all is said and done, we looked at all the precincts, and I cracked a couple of places in St. George. I cracked a couple of places in Cedar City. As a teacher, When I would go to these smaller towns across the state, people were like, you know what, Kathleen, I love what you do for education. You're the only Democrat that I would vote for. I said, how many other Democrats do you know? So not only were we kind of behind the 8 ball because people felt like they had to vote for that R because that's all they knew, I was like, why aren't we in those communities? Why aren't we doing more to be in St. George, at Utah Tech campus? Why aren't we doing more to be in those elementary schools? Talk to those teachers down there. Why are they voting for someone who's not working for them? So when I met the superintendents in the state, I said, what are you guys doing? I said, the Salt Lake County Democrats have your back every time. We vote with you every time. When you go back to your communities, what are you asking your elected leaders to do? They're voting against your schools. They're voting against your veterans. They're voting against your health care. Why are you re-electing them? And crickets. That's all I had was crickets. So this is something that we have to recognize. They won't vote for Democrats because they don't know Democrats. Well, let's go meet them. Let's go introduce ourselves. Get onto Utah Tech campus. Let's go down to Cedar City. Let's meet those people. The mayor of Cedar City is a Democrat. He would love to have more people down there. So let's go work at SUU University. They are great people. The state of Utah leaned further left than most states. Did you know that in the last election? The state of Utah doesn't want to go in the direction we're going in. They are fed up just like we are. So let's maximize on that. We went further PTA if you're a parent. Please join a PTA. PTAs are important. We have an organization that comes up and talks to us all the time at the Capitol about the PTA. Go to city meetings. Your cities are important. They have an amplified voice. Your mayors can actually have more access to local leaders. And letters, you can write letters to the cows come home. Just keep writing letters. It's important. And the last thing is, you don't have to go to the Capitol to be a part of it. You can call in. We have organizations that call in all the time, but we don't have anybody that is calling against what all those people are. So we have Utah Parents United who want to ban books. They're on every call. Where are our teachers? Where are our parents of teachers who are like, we don't want to ban books? Nothing good ever came from banning books. So please start showing up. Please start calling. Join some commissions. Go meet some rural friends. Show up to their town halls. We have a lot of work to do, but you know what? I think we're ready. We're ready to change, and please, I'd like to be there with you. So thank you. So I guess I'm going to answer a few questions. Okay. So if you'd like to, I don't know how we're doing this. Just scream them out. We have somebody with a microphone right there. If you'd like to raise your hand and ask a question, I might love to answer it. I don't know what the question is yet.
We have Spencer and Deanna right over here.
Okay, I see one hand right up right here. Here she comes, right behind you.
Senator Reevy, thank you so much for continuing to show up for our community. Much appreciated. I know that you're a state senator, and part of my daily habit is to contact my U.S. senators through 5 calls, etc. Does it help to contact you, for those larger issues? Is there any type of communication that you're having with our with the U.S. legislatures to talk about issues that are affecting us, like not just on the state stage, but on the national stage as well?
They will come and visit us, and we'll talk about our priorities and our frustrations, and we will have those conversations with them. We do not have the best communication with them, quite honestly, being from another party that they are. But when you email us, it does help, because it says, when I talk about things, I could say many people emailed me. This is what some people say, an anecdotal story. It doesn't have to be long. Actually, it's better if it's not long, but it does help to contact me and somebody else. So keep writing letters, keep writing those emails. People at the federal level have a whole staff of people that will start looking at your emails, and if they're getting an overwhelming number of emails on the opposite side, that should persuade them to vote differently. As I looked at the voting records of some of our federal delegation, I'm frustrated that they're not breaking away from their party. And that's very alarming. And when you ask them why they're not voting against their party, they say, well, you don't know how hard it is. Well, it is hard to do the right thing. Doing the right thing is not always easy. But we need people to do the right thing and start voting against their parties. So keep contacting them. We have a question right here, right in the middle. You want to just yell it out to me and I'll repeat it?
First off, thank you so much for showing up and doing this kind of thing, unlike some people. Anyway, I wanted to ask what you think might happen for queer kids, especially with the new laws and everything that have been passed lately.
I'm very alarmed. You were asking what's going to happen for queer kids, and it is an alarming trend, and we need to start recognizing that human rights are human rights, and we're all humans. And even when I've moved into the most conservative areas that I've ever canvassed in or worked in or had conversations in, we have to recognize that kids that are struggling in those realms are the most vulnerable people we have in our schools and our colleges. And those people need to be protected. Everyone needs to be protected. So I know Jen Plum was trying to pass a rule, and I think it passed, didn't it? That we were going to make every place safe for every person. Because when we look at what's happening, it's also bad for everyone. So human rights are human rights, and we need to protect kids that are struggling, and we need to make sure that you feel safe. But it's not looking good. And that's why we need to be loud, We need to be vocal, we need to fight back, and we need to keep educating people that everyone needs to be protected. Everyone. So I wish I had a better answer for you, but I'm a realist, and I'm going to fight like hell for you, okay? Over there.
Thank you for coming, Senator. My question is, am I correct that town halls are not just for us to ask questions and you to answer them, but for us to actually say something so that we could share ideas?
Sure.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I'd like to say, I also am from New York, and back in 1960, my hero was Jacob Javits, who was a Republican senator from New York, who also ran on the Liberal Party of New York. Each party was angry with him for doing that. He ran on both parties because he agreed of certain principles on both parties. He wasn't wedded to just one party. Now, I myself, I'm 79 years old. I'm a physician. My grandparents were immigrants to this country. And I want to say that all Americans, without exception, are either immigrants or descendants of immigrants.
Yes.
Every one of us.
Yep.
Every one of us. And that
Unless
is,
you're indigenous.
and it's our openness for immigrants and for free public education of those immigrants and all other Americans that has made us the great country that we have been. Also, giving those immigrants pathways to rights of full citizenship, equal to all other citizens, that has made our country great. And
I couldn't agree more.
I want to point out that dictators are opposed to education. Even in our country, during slavery, it was illegal to teach slaves how to read. Why? Why are dictators opposed to education? Because uneducated people are more easy and to control and manipulate because they don't understand certain concepts. They don't understand the economy. They don't understand what the difference is between a millionaire and a billionaire. They don't understand what fair taxation is for billionaires. They don't understand that national debts are not just about what government spending is, but also what government income is. Just as all of our debts are a combination of income and expenditures. They don't understand science. They don't understand science as an evolving towards greater and greater truth, never finding the absolute truth, but using critical observation and reasoning to get closer and closer and closer to the truth, which allows me as a physician to be good for my patients to help them heal. That's what I want to say tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. My grandfather also was an immigrant. My grandfather on the other side was an immigrant. I'm a first-generation college graduate. And I think that what you're saying is completely true. When I taught 6th grade out in Magna, I used the example of Mary J. Blige. Mary J. Blige was not educated. She was a great singer. She made millions of dollars and she went bankrupt. And I'd say, do you want to be like Mary J. Blige? She had no idea that people were giving her bad contracts over and over and over again. So she had to make herself successful again. And they're like, really? I said, yeah, when you don't know basic math, people take advantage of you. So that's why it's important. Thank you so much for your comments, and thank you so much for allowing me to be here tonight. Go out to your rural communities, join a board, join a commission.
All right, next up, John Arthur, Teacher of the Year. Put your hands together.
Hi, everybody. If at any point I kind of get this glazed look on my face, it's because I'm a teacher, an elementary school teacher on a Thursday night, and it just naturally happens to us. But another thing that's been happening to me is I've been listening both to your comments, Sarah, to your question here in the middle, and to everything that Kathleen was saying. I stand before you as an ambassador for all teachers from the classroom. I gotta tell you all right now, this is a really, really tough time. And that's frankly an understatement. I was the Utah Teacher of the Year in 2021, and I had a student who came up to me after it had been announced I was the Utah Teacher of the Year, and he said, "Captain." All my kids call me Captain. I won't tell you why, but they all call me Captain. He said, "Captain, what's it like being the teacher of the worst year ever?" And I said, "You know what? It's actually pretty great. I got into teaching because I believe in service. My mother was an immigrant from Korea. My father's a soldier. And I was raised on this idea that you have to take care of the community in which you live, and that all kids are our kids. And so when I became a teacher, it was purely to try and take care of other people's kids. When I was in college, I'd read this quote by Frederick Douglass, who said, "It is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men." And after I read that quote, yeah, he said great things. And I dedicated my life after I read that quote, to building strong children. And I thought that 2021 was as bad as it was ever going to be. The pandemic was terrible. I don't know if any of you watch zombie shows like The Walking Dead and stuff, but if you do, you know that the zombies are not the scariest thing. It's the humans that can really be terrifying, that really sink to certain levels. And the pandemic was the zombies. And for a while, it brought out the best in us. As a teacher, I was driving around the neighborhood, dropping off kits and care packages to children, just to let them know I still loved them, that I was still there for them. We saw beautiful things, so much support for teachers coming from all the adults, until things got really hard. And then they looked for someone to blame, and then they turned on teachers. And at that point, I recognized that it was also my responsibility not to give up on the adults, right? Like, it's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men, but we have no choice but to try to repair broken men. And I see that chicken as a physician of sorts, right? That chicken came out and is trying to heal this spirit of not showing up and listening to people. And it's not just in our leaders, it's in our communities. And we all have a responsibility right now to step up in a bigger way to remind everybody that we're in this together. And right now, the adults are scared. I talk to my kids all the time. We watch the news every morning. It's part of the 6th grade social studies curriculum. We watch the news, and sometimes my students will say this phrase. They'll say, "What have the adults done now?" Watch this news story, and then, oh God. And then it gets worse, like, what are the adults doing? And I try to give my students hope by letting them know that adults have been making terrible choices for a long time. This is not new. And I've been in the classroom for 12 years, and I've seen things not just like swing on a pendulum, but ride like a roller coaster. And the question that came from, excuse me, I got a little emotional even thinking about it earlier. The question that came from the middle touches on something that Nate said when he sat down next to me. He noticed all my pens here in my pocket. He's like, "You got a lot of pens." I'm like, "Many pens." Markers, highlighters, all kinds of things. But this is actually a relic of a time gone by. When I was a first-year teacher, there was a law in place called no promo homo. And that's what we called it. You couldn't talk about anything that had to do with our LGBTQ youth, right? You couldn't say the word gay, you couldn't say the word queer. I was teaching 5th grade, and I was reading the Wizard of Oz with my students. And the words gay and queer came up in the reading. And a couple of kids giggled. I wanted to say something about it, but I had my principal in the back of the room, and she was watching me as I was delivering this lesson. I started to say something, and she gave me this look like, and the hardest part was I had a young man in the front row who was very clearly gay and had never really talked about it in class, but we all knew. And after the lesson, I went up to my principal. I said, "What was that about?" She's like, "John, you're a first-year teacher. You're on a provisional contract. You cannot talk about these things in class. It would be taken as promoting an alternative lifestyle." I said, "What's wrong with that? That sounds like a good idea." And she's like, "No, you could lose your job." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Can I wear a pin? Can I get a flag? Can I wear socks? Can I do something to let my student know that I got him, that he will always be safe when he's in a room with me? And she said, no, you cannot. I went home and I agonized over it. And then in the middle of the night, I had this epiphany. I was like, I'm a school teacher. No one could ever give me a hard time about wearing pens in my pocket or markers or highlighters. And so I came in the next day with this kind of raggedy assortment of pens and highlighters and markers, and everybody else just thought I'd like color-coded my curriculum. But I looked my guy in the eye, and he looked at me, and he knew that I was flying a flag just for him. And that, I tell that story to remind us all that we've been here before. Like, we've had to deal with these awful things. And while I hate the idea of going back, I do not want to go back to a place where justice has to be subversive again. We've been there, and teachers will know how to do it. So as the adults pass laws taking away the flags, we will fly flags of other forms. We will find a way to let all kids know that they are loved. And in fact, we're going to do it more because we are going to be fired up to do it. We didn't know that we were going to have these obvious things taken away from us. We're going to step up in a bigger way. You've seen it with HB 267, the attacks on public workers. 320,000 Utahns signed packets carried by volunteers, by firefighters, by police officers, by teachers. You didn't know that so many signatures could be gathered in 30 days until we did it. They do not know who they are messing with, because it is not just teachers. It's not just those of us who love public education. It's everybody in our community who's been shaken, who's been told, look, watch what's happening around you. And they're coming after our children. When you come after public workers, you come after children, you ignite something in good-hearted people. And I promise you, our communities are filled with more good-hearted people than not. And it's just an honor to be in a room filled with so many tonight. So thank you for the opportunity to tell me. I would love to take any questions that have to do with education broadly, nationally, but especially here in our local communities, if anybody's got it.
How does the federal government cuts to the Department of Education affect you on the local level?
It's terrifying. I'll tell you, the effects at the federal level, there's a couple that I'll point to. Some have had immediate impacts. For example, executive orders by this president. I never thought that I would have to print off and along with my school district and my school distribute resources in the community like these red cards. If you're not familiar with a red card, on one side it lets people who are holding that card know what their rights are, and on the other side of the card it lets law enforcement, immigration officers know I'm informed of my rights and here's what I'm telling you. I can't say it in English, but the card speaks for me. I never thought that we would have to print these off, but an executive order forced us to take better care, not just of our kids, but of their caretakers. Wow. I could point to a number of those. As far as the Department of Education goes, it's still a waiting game, but I want you to imagine, the Department of Education, people think that it's in charge of education. It is not. When I look around my classroom and I think, what do I have to do? I look at my curriculum. That comes from my local school district. They tell me the materials I use to teach. When I look at my standards, the things that I have to teach, or the tests that assess whether or not my kids have learned it, that all comes from the state. None of those things come from the federal government. The things that do come to the federal government, to my Title I school, is money. It's money that hires more teachers so we can have smaller class sizes. Title I is a program that's supposed to help take care of low-income kids in low-income communities. The other title programs are all targeted at groups that we did not take good enough care of before the 1960s and 70s, and we still have not lived up to our promise to yet. And the idea that you're going to take the people who are supposed to send that money to Meadowlark Elementary and cut that staff in half and still expect that that's going to make it. And then have a legislature who is trying to take property taxes and put in the general fund and take money out of the income tax, which is earmarked for public education, higher education, and programs for students with disabilities. They want to take that and put it in the general fund where they can spend it on anything. And we're supposed to trust when they say, federal government, just block grant that money, send it to us, and we'll make sure it gets to the kids who need it most. If you cared about kids with disabilities and you cared about public education students, then you would not keep cutting the income tax. You would not keep cutting the money that is dedicated just to us. You have demonstrated clearly you do not love us the way that we need to be loved. So, frankly, I trust a civil servant who's working for the Department of Education who just got laid off a whole lot more than I do a lot of the representatives and senators up at the legislature. Yeah. I want those people back because they got the money to Meadowlark Elementary before. I need them to make sure it comes again because we have too many students and too few teachers. We are facing a teacher shortage that is only being exacerbated by the toxicity that is being flooded into our public education system.
Shame.
Hi, so we're talking about getting involved, and one of the things that we can do to get involved as a regular citizen is to, currently, one of the options is to become a delegate in the Democratic Party. Mm-hmm. So maybe not everybody's a Democrat, if you are, great. But that has to be done by April 26th, and you have to email your House District Chair. And then additionally, you get to vote for who will be the party chair, which today we have Ben Peck, who is sitting over here, who's the only one who's here, who just came from a debate with Brian King, who did not come here. So if you would like to support that, then you should try and become a delegate. But I think additionally, as everyday citizens, we should have more conversations with our neighbors on defining what is civility, because I feel like that's something that Republicans will do on all the time, being like, we can't have this conversation, it's not a civil conversation. When in reality, the actions that are being proposed to us are not civil. So if we intend to have any sort of change, I think it starts with our friends defining what is civility and standing up for what is actually helpful and standing behind the values that they propose to say they stand behind, like Christianity should be. But what can we do to help teachers for you at this time in a more real way? Because we can.
You are very sweet to ask that question. I'll tell you, not only is this the toughest year that I can remember to be a public school teacher, this is the toughest time of year to be a teacher. April and May suck. Like, they just do, because it's all end of year testing. And it's the time where I want to be teaching my kids more things, but instead I have to just put them through this gauntlet of mental nonsense. And I tell you, we have Teacher Appreciation Week coming up. My wife and I have this saying in my house, every day is Valentine's Day. Every day should be Teacher Appreciation Day.
Yeah!
Every week should be Teacher Appreciation Week. And so right now, if you have kids or grandkids or nieces, nephew, or anybody who has a teacher, that teacher's going through a thing. I guarantee you. There is not a public school teacher who's like, you know what, this is easy. I'm chilling. This is great. Reach out to them. Don't just give them a cursory thank you or thank you for your service. Give them a gift card to something caffeinated, right? That would be very helpful. That's a beautiful go-to. It always works. And the other thing that I'll say is stand up for us. People are coming at us all the time. And the hardest thing in the world is just constantly having to defend ourselves. We need a groundswell of public support from organizations like Utah Parents for Teachers and all the organizations that are here supporting this conversation tonight. We need everybody to get loud, because if you've ever been in a schoolyard, you've seen a bully going after somebody, that bully's loud. Bully's always loud. Kids stand up for themselves. They're as loud as they can muster, right? But it's the crowd that says, hey, leave them alone. You back off now. They're doing everything that they can to take care of our kids. You get out of here, because if you don't, they're going to leave instead. We need everybody to get vocal and fierce in standing up for public school teachers, counselors, librarians. Everybody's getting picked on right now. So please, 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 rise to our defense. I'm seeing hands. I don't know if you guys want... yes, please.
Hello. How do you think the Trump administration is going to affect accommodations for kids, and what do you think we can do to protect them?
I think that's a fantastic question. As far as accommodations go, here's the thing. They are legally mandated, right? But it's the delivery, right? It doesn't matter what's written in the laws, it's who's there and how much do they care about the person they're trying to accommodate, right? If they're trying to accommodate somebody that they view as a nuisance, somebody whose existence they don't even 100% believe in, how hard are they going to work for that human? How hard are they going to work for that child, right? I tell you, my greatest hope, I cannot help it, I'm an elementary school teacher. I'm not a hopeless optimist, but I am an optimist. My vision for what goes forward from things like this is we will all leave here and we will sing the praises of everybody in education, but more importantly, we will call for, we can't expect more from Donald Trump. Like, we can't. I can expect more from Senator Curtis, and we can all insist on that.
Yeah.
I remember I read profiles. How old are you? Do you mind me asking? 13. Well, I was not as old as you. I was much older, but I was going to guess 18. I was about the age I imagined you were when I read Profiles in Courage by John F. Kennedy about senators who had stepped up in times of crisis and did the brave thing, did the right thing. I'm still waiting. I haven't given up on anybody out there. There's always a chance that they're going to surprise us, right? That they might hear something from this that lights a spark and inspires them. I'm hoping that they will step up and start joining the chorus that comes from things like this. And then that will inspire people who've thought about civil service, who've thought about serving in our federal government system, who care about children, who say, I'm going to take this job and I'm going to make sure that this funding and these regulations that have been appropriated by Congress, they make it to the children who need them. I'm going to become a bridge from the resources down to those who need them. And in the meantime, teachers, librarians, school administrators, everybody, we're going to hustle. We are going to reach out to all the organizations that we can and try and make magic happen. I'd love, as a piece of your homework tonight, to give a shout out to a local organization called Included United. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but it's a perfect example. On social media, look it up, Included United. In the attacks on DEI and everything else, you see, oh man, they're saying all this stuff, but all that shade, all that rain, it leads to the growth of flowers. And that's one of those organizations that's doing it. They've championed inclusion. And they're doing the work at the ground level of trying to make sure that we can piece together the accommodations and the supports that students need. There are too many adults who love young people to let young people fall through the cracks.
Yeah.
We will step up. We will do what we gotta do. But at the end of the day, there's only so much we can do. And gathering 320,000 signatures, all this work, it's exhausting. It's burning out champions. And that's why we need more champions to rise in our place. Thank you. Maybe one last question. I see your hand.
Yes, I just wanted to amplify something you were talking about just a few minutes ago and add a little context. A few weeks ago, I was having a discussion with Lincoln Fillmore, who is my Senate representative. We were talking about the Department of Education. And just to reinforce what you said, the Department of Education has nothing to do with local curriculum. That is entirely local. More importantly, however, it's my understanding from Lincoln Fillmore that the Department of Education funding that comes to Utah constitutes something close to 1/3 of the educational funding for the state of Utah. When I heard 1/3 of the educational funding, I told Lincoln, probably not a good idea to blow up the Department of Education. Okay?
Yeah.
Lastly,
yeah.
it's my understanding that there's going to be a protest against John Curtis at the Little America tomorrow, 11 till 2. So anyway, Department of Education, they just funnel money. They do not funnel ideology. Okay? And it's a third of the education budget. That's some serious dollars.
Well, he's wrong. It's not a third of the education budget, but your point still stands, right?
Okay.
If you separate his nonsense from that, on average across the country, it's about 13%, and here in Utah, it's 11%, más o menos, like 10 to 11. But it's money that the legislature would love to get a hold of to add to the general fund, right? They would love to have it block granted.
I'll add a compliment to you, too. It's been several years since I looked into it, but the OECD, Organization of Economic Development, basically Western nations, OECD has a program called PISA, P-I-S-A. It's a program for international student assessment. And a very interesting note is that Utah tends to spend about the least per student of any state in the country. But believe it or not, Utah students score above average on PISA tests. Now we're still 32nd in the world for educational achievement, but you guys apparently do a good job with not nearly as much money as other states. So,
well, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you saying that, but that congratulations goes to everybody. The reason why Utah students do so well is because Utah communities are so strong. Our families step up. It's the moms, the dads, the siblings, the abuelas and abuelos sitting at the kitchen table with their kids, helping them learn. We have a beautifully strong community and collection of amazing adults who compensate for our legislators' neglect. They don't invest enough into our education, so we step up because we love our kids so much. But that is not a sustainable system, and that's why we are seeing so many of the problems that we have today. And if you don't mind, I just want to say one nerdy thing about this because it rattles around in my brain all the time. Just bear with me. In the United States, they always like to talk about how the Department of Education is failing because scores are flat, right? But back in the day, not everybody got to go to school. And those schools were unequal. So as we opened access to children with disabilities, to students from all kinds of minoritized communities, these kids came in. And because they were dealing with generations of undereducated, failed adults, not adults who were failing, but adults who had been failed when they were children, who had not been taken care of at the level that they would come in the education system and they would take these tests. And so education would get better. We would learn. The Department of Education does do one thing outside of funnel money that's very important, which is a lot of grants and research and development that makes my practices better in the classroom. I've learned a lot based on research that has come from the Department of Education. So we keep bringing in more populations of kids who struggle, and our scores are flat. You would imagine that as you open up access to education, scores would go down. But that reflects the strength of the education that we've had. That's why even after in the 1980s, this report came out that everyone freaked out about when it came to education. Oh, education's going down. It's called Nation at Risk. If you want to nerd out, go read it. But all these years later, we're still producing many of the top minds in the world, and our institutions of higher learning are crushing it. It's because those who have are getting the best education in the world, and they are performing at that level. And those who have not, we are trying through these measures to lift them up, and so it stays flat like this. But do not let anybody tell you that U.S. educators or our education system is failing our kids. Adults have failed us in the education system, and yet we continue to compensate for their neglect. And that's what flat is. But if we can all elect better representatives and senators, You unleash us, we will rise. I promise you. We have the most brilliant teaching force in the world and the most beautiful, wonderful children that have ever been seen. We can do it. Just enable us, empower us, stop trying to take away our voices, stop trying to take away our ability to negotiate better lives for ourselves and our families. You lift us up, we'll take everybody with us. Thank you all so much. I'm sorry, there's one more hand. I'll take the last one, yes.
Is this working? Yeah. I am a 6th grade teacher. I teach
Let's
social
go.
studies and language arts, and I haven't for a couple of years because I have a 2-year-old and I'm home with her, but I'm still sub. And I'm thinking about going back to teaching. I'd love to go back. But I'm so nervous about all of this pressure. Every teacher I know prides themselves on making their classroom a welcoming, safe, and politically neutral space where we teach lots of ideas and let kids debate and think for themselves. That's what social studies is for.
Yeah.
And I see all of this pressure that's pushing us in a political direction in the name of not indoctrinating kids. And I also see kids coming to me saying, oh, this is my friend. I don't understand, but I feel like the other kids aren't very nice to him because his family is from another country. And why is that? And I'm saying, sometimes people do bad things. Sometimes people teach their kids bad opinions. But it hurts so bad to watch the kids being indoctrinated with hate and being pushed in this direction, but also as a teacher who prides myself on being very in the middle in my classroom and loving all my kids, it's scary to go back into that environment where we're also asking people to report teachers who are too left-leaning, right? And how do I go back to teaching full-time and have a classroom again in my very conservative community full of people I love and not be afraid, but also be there to stick up for the kids who are having a really hard time?
Yeah. I'm torn in answering your question. First of all, if you've been subbing and now you want to come back to the classroom, like, God bless you. That's amazing. Subbing usually sends them the other way. But, you know, the thing is, if you create, like, first of all, there's a lot of pressure on teachers. However, there's a teacher shortage. So, you know, job security has never been better. You know, there's a high demand and supply is low. So if, you know, for example, somebody came to me and said, John Arthur, you've been saying too much, you've been doing too much, you're out. I would step out into a market in which I could go into the private sector and make more money for easier work. That sounds nice. Or I could like find another teaching job pretty easily. Now, that's just a practical answer. The true answer to your question is, it's scary. And so being scared to come into the classroom is not exactly what you ought to be feeling. But I will say this. You don't have to indoctrinate kids into being decent humans. They just naturally are. And all you have to do, you don't have to teach them the lessons about like not saying mean things to people, because if you create a safe, welcoming environment for children, they will just naturally shine. Our kids are amazing. There's a quote from Robert Frost who said, I'm not a teacher, but an awakener. And all you have to do is awaken kids to the brilliance and humanity that's inside of them. And not indoctrinate them, but teach them how to humanize everybody. How to humanize that kid next to them who's got 2 moms at home. That kid next to them who doesn't speak English and they're from a war-torn country. The kid who's a refugee. The kid who's got disabilities. That kid who's bouncing off the walls. If you teach kids how to humanize, then they will just indoctrinate each other into decency, and just they will come together like a fire that brings not heat but light. You know what I mean? Like that's all you have to do. They're kind of like a set it and forget it when it comes to humanity. So come back to the classroom, please. We need you. If you choose not to, I will not hold it against you, but please come back. And when you do, when you do, no matter what the law says, I'm not telling you to break the law. I'm just saying, whatever the law says, put up clear symbols that indicate to all kids that they belong here. Put books on your shelves. Put whatever it is that you need to put out there so that kids can find themselves in your room, on the walls and the representation that they see. And then do not tolerate injustice, hate, or any of the things that can poison the beautiful spirit that kids just bring in with them. And if you do that, they will blossom like a garden. And the thing that I always say is, you know, when you think of like a garden and metaphors for education, people will often say the teachers are the gardener, but really we are the soil and they are the seeds. And so if we find ways to be healthy ourselves and make practice humanizing everybody, they will just pick it up and they'll want to do that because hate is exhausting. All the things that we're fighting against right now, our opponents will become tired. You cannot sustain this much hate for that long. And eventually, the things that sustain us, like love and respect and kindness and decency, we will win the day. That's why justice will ultimately prevail. But we all have to take care of each other so that we all make it to that day. Come back. We need you.
Okay, Senator Nate Bluen, you're up. Everybody, welcome the Senator.
Hey everyone, I feel like John should have wrapped it up. That was like a message of hope and enlightenment and really good feelings. And I don't always hit those notes quite as well, unfortunately, because I'm in the legislature with Kathleen. And the legislators act like children sometimes, but not in a good way. Oh man. Well, hey, thanks everyone for coming out. The continued excitement we've seen over the last few weeks, few months has been incredible. It's a challenging time for folks, and we appreciate people turning out. And we did an event. I saw it. Where's Kenneth? There's Kenneth. Kenneth hosted a nice little event last night down in Murray. We had 10 people or so in a room talking about how to become a delegate in the Democratic Party, which is super nerdy stuff that is important. And so anything we can do to get people involved in that space is really awesome. So I'm Senator Nate Bluen. I represent Sugar House area of Salt Lake City. I represent all of South Salt Lake. I live in Mill Creek, so I have a good chunk of Mill Creek, a lot of Murray in my district, and then just a little tiny bit of West Valley City. It's a great district. It's a fun area to represent. Certainly, I'm going to touch on gerrymandering, but that just the mishmash of those cities it pretty clearly shows off some of the issues there. So some of the things I've been talking about lately as I talk to folks in different spaces, I think it's important to like acknowledge the situation we're in. I think just federally, like nationally, we are in a constitutional crisis. There's like this debate over like how far are things going to go. I don't think we need to go any further to be able to say that. It's pretty clear that after some of these, some of the not following due process and all those sort of things are just really leading us in a really dark path. And so I know we're here talking to Senator John Curtis because he's somewhere in Utah, I think, maybe. I remember him coming into our caucus during the session. We meet with everyone. He came in person this year, right? Didn't he? Maybe he was online. He was online. Okay. And I mean, they talked about him. I think Malloy kind of said this too. They said, like, just don't worry about things. Like, we got this. It's gonna be fine. This was back in like February probably. And I mean, things were already not fine in February. Like, it was pretty clear the trajectory things were going on. So, I mean, it felt like we were being gaslit. That's how I felt, at least. Like, he was telling us he's got this and everything's gonna be fine and it's all good, and that we should help him communicate to constituents that everything's good and the Republic will live on and all that. And it's not on autopilot. The Constitution is not self-executing. We need people to enforce the laws, and we're seeing the implications of that not happening right now with some of these, deportations to El Salvador and other crazy stuff going on. So, that was concerning just to hear that, a guy who confirmed every single one of Trump's nominees took that, and now we're seeing the implications of that. Thinks that everything is fine. I strongly disagree. So, we're Kathleen and I are in the state Senate. So we hear a lot about federal issues. Certainly right now, a lot of focus on the federal government, but we deal with things going on right here in Utah, and so I try to keep it in that space, and I think people can have a really great impact in that space too. So trying to communicate more of what's going on here in our state is something that is important to me. So you probably know, we've got a supermajority here in the legislature. There's 6 of us in the state Senate, 6 Democrats in the state Senate out of 29, and it's a similar number. It's 14 out of 75 in the state House. So that makes things really tough. We see, I just mentioned gerrymandering. That to me is one of the absolute most critical issues that we're facing. I'm going to steer, I'll try and tie it into education at some point maybe, but we just heard about education, like from folks who know that stuff far better than I do. I didn't grow up here in Utah, go to public schools here. These folks are engaged in that space and really knowledgeable, so they've got the expertise on those sort of things. But the way our districts are drawn here in Utah is absolutely atrocious. We're seeing some of we saw in Kathleen's race. She was talking about the voters, but I mean also the way the districts are drawn, and that was an insurmountable race to take on, and she did a fantastic job of getting in that space. But we've got a court decision ongoing, hopefully decisions coming soon that will lead us towards better maps here in the state that actually represent our population. So within a mile or so of my Senate district, I actually overlap with 3 of the 4 congressional districts, and the one that I don't is just a couple steps outside up in 39th South and Mill Creek. So it is we have Republicans from all corners of the state represented, but the Democrats and the progressives and the folks here in Salt Lake County area have nothing, and it shows. We've had some good representation over the years, and we went from Ben McAdams to Burgess Owens, which is just one of the most ridiculous trades I've ever seen in my life. I think redistricting is super important, and we need folks to keep up the pressure on that one. But some of the things that come out of that, we just saw the other day, one of the district court judges ruled that one of the supermajority's signature laws is unconstitutional. What was that? HB 215 a couple of years ago. This was what was that? Yeah, vouchers. The vouchers, the Utah Fits All scholarship, quote unquote. That has been decided against, that it is not constitutional. So unless higher courts reverse that decision going forward, that law, which sends money from public schools to private schools with literally zero accountability, and takes it away from really great teachers we have in our public schools, that law is going to be off the books unless something changes at the higher level. So that's something to work towards, something that we're focused on. A little bit of hope there, a little bit of education talk. But it's so frustrating because every time, and this just goes to the supermajority status, we've got every time we see one of these decisions in the courts that the Republicans don't like, they are not used to losing. They do not lose. And so when they do, they resort to these ridiculous tactics. Immediately they will come out and call the judge a judicial activist. They'll say they're legislating from the bench. I looked up. We have all the ratings of like the attorneys that practice in front of these judges, and Judge Scott, I think it is, who made this decision, has fantastic ratings. Like everyone loves her. Everyone whether she decides for you or against you, everyone feels like they've gotten a fair hearing. You can look all this up. It's all public. And the first statement made by the sponsor of that bill was that we've got a judicial activist, and that this is a bad decision, and that we're gonna fight against it. So it just goes to show that when we do fight back, when we do get these wins, they overreact, and that's when we have an opportunity to really get in there and express our own values, which I think we don't do enough. We are reactive to the Republicans and the supermajority here in the state. Kathleen and I certainly are trying to change that narrative and speak up a little more and put some of our own ideas forward. We've both put gun bills forward and other things that lead to interesting conversations, but we know aren't going to pass. And I think we've got to be doing more of that, because we need to give people some hope, get people involved, give people an idea of like what the alternative is. We so often just see what we're trying to fight against, but we have good ideas. I think I have good ideas. I think Kathleen has good ideas. I think John ran for state school board, and hopefully he does again. He's got good ideas, but we don't have an opportunity to convince people of those things. So things like making healthcare more accessible, more affordable. The Republicans are trying to cut Medicaid. We just want to see people get the care they need to keep living their lives. We want to get kids high quality child care. We're not just, the Republican idea of making child care more affordable has been opening up houses to put 8 kids with one caretaker. It's going to end up with kids getting killed and all sorts of nasty stuff. And so these ideas are bad. They are not going to move us forward as a state. And we need to do a better job, I think, of expressing our own opinions, speaking up loudly, fighting back against some of these things that we see going on, because we so often get sucked into this. Someone from another state that I talked to called it permanent minority brain. So we've gotten so used to being in the minority as progressives, as Democrats here in Utah, in the political space, that we just kind of go along to get along and stop fighting back. And I think we need to really try to shift opinion. We've seen what happens when we actually push back and talk about things that maybe seem unpopular at first. We saw Trump was very strong on immigration at first, but at the national level, we have talked about those issues. We have highlighted some of the concerns, the problems with just sending people off without any due process. And I think he's now net negative on immigration, because we have talked about it, and we have really forced those issues home and said, hey, this is actually what's happening here. It is not, it's not creating safer communities. It's not helping people. It is just demonizing folks who are already in challenging situations, and it's going to lead to you and me getting potentially put into some really nasty situations, and I don't think anyone wants that. So when we talk about things, when we fight back, when we put our own ideas forward, we have much better success with actually trying to change the narrative and get some good things done. So as far as what we can do, a lot of it's already been said, but there's so many things that we can get involved in. So boards and commissions, like Kathleen mentioned, I think, did that bill end up passing that took partisan requirements? Yeah, we used to have requirements that balanced the political makeup of our boards and commissions. These are things like our air quality board at the state level, Department of Alcoholic Beverage Services. I think you said DABC. It's DABS now. Yeah, we changed it. It's friendlier with services on there. So there used to be these requirements that we had, no more than like a simple majority of the commission made up of Republicans or the majority party. We killed that this year because Republicans were frustrated with actually having to go out and recruit people from diverse backgrounds from across the state, and they wouldn't come to us and ask us for help in getting good people on those boards. So that's super important. If you have expertise, I think it's just boards.utah.gov. It's a simple website to find. You can find these openings like Senator Reeby mentioned, and let us know if you're going to apply. We can help you. You probably don't want to mention my name or maybe Reeby's name, but we can point you in the right direction to make sure that someone is going to help you get onto those boards and commissions, because we do need political and diversity of thought on those boards and bringing good people forward. And it's just been, the appointments have gotten worse and worse. They've gotten more politicized. They've gotten more homogenous. We just see the same people, literally the same people the same people getting appointed to numerous boards and commissions, because that's the only person that the governor knows that knows anything about water or anything about air quality. It's ridiculous. So get involved in boards and commissions. Get involved in your local community councils. I go to Sugar House Community Council most months. Most communities, whether you're in Salt Lake City, surrounding neighborhoods, have community councils. Those are awesome ways to just meet your neighbors in non-political spaces and create connections and start talking about things that are going to help the community. And it's a lot of fun. So that's an opportunity there. PTAs, like were mentioned, run for school board, this is a city council year, this is a municipal election year, 2025. If you're interested in running for city council, there's a lot of positions that need to be filled there, and people don't put a lot of spotlight on some of those things. Our school boards next year will be up again. Legislature, certainly. I didn't wait my turn to run for office. I took on someone who'd been in office for 36 years. You can do that too. There's nothing wrong with feeling like you can do something better and just taking your opinion and jumping into the ring and trying to make a difference that way. So I think that's critical to get more people engaged in all those sort of spaces. And then you can get involved in the party, the Democratic Party. Hopefully, from my perspective, but you can do your own thing too. We need good people all across the political space. Find a candidate or a campaign that you can get involved in. I'll be running again next year, so if you want to come help me out, again, hopefully John runs again. Kathleen just ran, so she's got a couple more years. She 4 years is a nice option in the Senate, whereas it's 2 in the House of Representatives. So lots of opportunities, lots of excitement right now. But bring that excitement in. Talk to your friends, talk to your neighbors, get them to show up to things like this. Keep them involved, keep them engaged, and keep the attention on the political space, because people are feeling the heat. I know from what we hear from our federal representatives, our colleagues in the legislature, they make stupid mistakes when we put the pressure on. I mean, we've seen Senator McKay is talking about sending prisoners to other countries because it would be cheaper than housing them here. I mean, it's insane. Like, it is immoral, and it's, to me, not even a conversation that deserves a serious thought. But here we are. We have elected officials talking about this stuff. So we need to show that to the public, because I don't think people think that's a good idea or want to see that go forward. And that's certainly not the only example. Just this focus on all sorts of crazy stuff that's just not making people's lives better. So get involved, help us out. We need all your voices to be the best representatives we can be. So again, thank you for being here, and happy to answer any questions if folks have any. See one right. Oh, there you go. You're getting the mic.
Thank you very much for coming. I just started, this year starts my 40th year in education. I was there, right, when they crashed the planes. I was right there as part of that. And part of what I do too is I'm training the future educators. We don't have enough teachers, and that's what I'm doing now at the university, is training future educators. And so my question, a comment first and then my question, it was asked, what does the Department of Education do? And the Department of Education is vital in preparing and training future educators. The other part that's vital at the Department of Education is that they provide resources, including research centers such as positive behavior supports, transition, critical literacy thinking. And there is no way, it would be foolish and expensive to think that we would want to duplicate and replicate these education centers in each of the 50 states. The Department of Education is who gathers data on the numbers of students, teachers, schools. It would be foolish and expensive to replicate and duplicate that in 50 states. What the Department of Education does is supports free of charge to every child, teacher, and family in the U.S. to make sure that all students and all families have access to an education that is appropriate for them. So my question coming up to you is, We see things coming from the legislature that is not necessarily friendly to higher education. And as we're talking about education, we need to be talking about higher education. And the terms diversity, equity, inclusion are not political terms, they are professional terms. That professions in education, medicine, science, everyone depends on these terms. And we cannot politicize what we need to use to talk about our students, our clients, our customers, our patients. These are words. So when House Bill 265 was passed, which decimates, takes away millions of dollars from higher education, what can we count on our senators, our representatives in the state legislature to make sure they're standing up for higher education? Because higher education is where diversity, equity, and inclusion makes a difference in society.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for your work in educating teachers. That's fantastic. And for 40 years, you said, that's longer than I've been alive. So congratulations.
No one likes to hear that.
Paul, no, 265 was really frustrating to watch that go forward. I think I actually looked up some of the programs at the University of Utah that will be impacted by that reinvestment. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, it's what is it, 65 million, I think, or something like that across the state. Basically, we're calling it reinvesting. So it's taking money from what some folks are considering low performing or low demand majors and shifting it to education. So I have a writing and rhetoric degree from the University of Utah, and I looked up based off the numbers that they were showing us that program would be cut. And I don't know if that's going to be the case or not yet, but so certainly that personal impact I will feel is something I'll be using to push back against where we see that money going, and we do need to make sure that we're speaking clearly about the value of, I think, humanities and all those sort of programs that we're gonna need to push to work with. Artificial intelligence is something we're hearing so much about. If you just have that run amok without any human context or human eyes on that stuff, you're gonna get all sorts of crazy things going on. So we need these writing majors, these English people, these artists to look at it. I mean, whatever. I saw, I think theater and dance were getting combined at maybe USU or something. So we're just seeing all these things thrown together that probably don't make a whole lot of sense. And I know the university leadership is feeling the strain here. They're having a hard time putting these things together quickly because they're being rushed through. So I think there's going to be a lot of bad decisions made, and there's going to be a lot of opportunities to speak up as we figure out what those bad decisions are, to say, hey, this is how we need to fix this. And I don't think we shouldn't be looking at this as like a win or loss situation. I mean, we can grow the whole pie and stop just taking money away from some of these programs. We can still grow others that do need it. And I don't think there's anything. There's no partisanship around kind of some of these technical education pieces around welding or around engineering. Those are all we know we're going to need those, but taking it from other degrees that also are definitely in need is not the right way to do it. And so we'll keep working on that and looking for the problems that arise and looking for opportunities to go back to hopefully go forward and go do things better than we were doing in the past, because it's not like some of those programs are flush with cash to begin with.
Okay, we have time for one last question.
Hi, you opened by expressing your concern about gerrymandering.
Mm-hmm.
There was the amendment that passed, right? Everyone voted for.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm curious, who is responsible for the push against getting those independent maps? Right? Who's fighting against that? Because we voted for it and I haven't seen it go anywhere.
Yeah, it's extremely partisan. It is Republicans, it is Republican-aligned organizations and donors. Really, who gets to draw the maps determines in many ways who represents us. And so what we're trying to do is what that initiative tried to do and is trying to do is take it out of politicians' hands, which I think is the right thing, and put it into an independent commission of citizens, people with expertise in mapping, judiciary issues, just things like you would need to look at the community and say, okay, like this kind of makes some sense. We're going to do this, and we're going to put together a bunch of maps. We're going to take like hundreds and hundreds of public comments on this and do things that way. Seems like a great way to do it. They came up with good ideas. They came up with good maps, and yeah, the legislature came in and said we don't like that. And it's Republicans. I mean, and frankly, it is Democrats in other states. It is whoever's in power, and especially in a supermajority, is going to fight back against losing the ability to draw the maps themselves. But that's kind of just part and parcel to how government has worked, and I don't think it's right. I think it's created a lot of these rifts that we see across the entire political space right now, because my district is 70+% Democratic. I got 73% of the vote or something, and it's not because I'm some amazing candidate. It's just because that is how the district was drawn, to push a bunch of Democrats and a bunch of more liberal people into one area so that they weren't diluting the vote in other more Republican areas, and they could take their supermajority and run with it. But whoever kind of what you see is in whichever states they've run initiatives or put forward these independent commissions, it's usually by ballot initiative or something, because you're not going to see politicians voluntarily giving up that power, even though it's the right thing to do. And so I'm fully supportive of where that independent commission goes. Hopefully we do get that back and really actually taking effect, and the maps that come out of it will be the maps that we have to abide by, and not able to shut out the maps that actually represent the community in favor of ones that favor incumbents and favor one party in the legislature.
So what was it in the legislature? From what I understand, they tried to make it harder to put forth these amendments this year in the legislature.
Yeah, so I'll say we, but we didn't vote for this. They passed legislation that will raise the threshold. So ballot initiatives are very difficult. You've got to get 150 or some odd thousand signatures across the state. We're seeing this with a referendum. It's very similar to the HB 267 referendum. It's a similar amount of signatures with these distributions across the entire state. Super tough to just get that on the ballot. So you've got to get the signatures all around the state, and then the initiative or the referendum goes on the ballot the next general election. So you've first got that really hard process of just getting it on, and then generally you've had to get 50% plus one of the vote. What the legislature did this past year is require initiatives that will raise taxes, and I think there's a loose interpretation of what that could be. It could be any sort of kind of fiscal impact. So anything that falls into that bucket will require a 60% majority vote on the ballot of all citizens across the state. So I've actually done some work on basically a Medicare for All initiative, and that will certainly have a fiscal component to it. And so if that law stands, then that initiative, if it makes it on the ballot, will likely need 60% of the vote, which is a really big ask. Generally, the last, I don't know if any of the initiatives that we passed in 2018 got 60%. The redistricting got like 52 or something. Medical marijuana might have gotten closer to 60, but it's a really high hurdle, and they're trying to make it more difficult because they don't want to have these initiatives that take power from the legislature.
All right, guys, we are about to wrap up. I just want to make a couple announcements before we do. If you'd like to attend more events like this, please scan the QR code that's outside, sign up for our contact lists, and we'll keep you apprised of the big stuff coming down the pipe. Now, if that the veto override happens, they're going to call a special session. It's going to be in the evening, which is a great opportunity for us because we're available to show up at the Capitol and protest. This is the bill that is going to take money that would normally go directly to schools and put it into the governor's fund. And that's not good. That's going to be taking money from schools, and it's going to give the governor more power on what can be taught in schools. So just keep that in mind. That's on the docket. When it happens, we'll let you know. Stop by the library's front desk. You can get a validation for 2 hours. If you've written a postcard to Senator John Curtis, just drop it off at one of those tables out front. We'll make sure to give it to him, and we're gonna make a big deal about giving it to him. Last but not least, the chicken is outside. Please take a photo with the chicken. Tag Senator Curtis. Would love to see that. Or you can take a photo with him right here as well. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Have a great day. Hope to see you at the next town hall.